Coming up on this week's edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
We'll explain how NCBA members work to set policy priorities and why it matters to you. Plus, see how John Deere equipment can help manage the challenges of hay season.
And now, NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Hello and welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kate Maher. We're continuing our coverage of the recent cattle industry summer business meeting from San Diego, where the beef industry's leading voices and organizations came together to discuss critical issues, develop initiatives, and establish direction for a variety of work aimed at improving the beef cattle business. Hundreds of cattle producers engaged in productive discussions during NCBA policy committees and subcommittees that help set the plan of work for NCBA in the upcoming year. And joining me now is one of those folks that was here in San Diego, Mark Isley, a Wyoming cattle producer and president-elect of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Mark, thanks for being here with us. I'd like to get your perspectives on what transpired here in San Diego at the summer business meeting.
All kinds of things have transpired. We're having committee meetings, policy meetings, work with the checkoff, networking, some entertainment. It's all pretty good.
It's always fun to see our people and our grassroots producers come together. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of those policy committee meetings and subcommittee meetings in terms of setting the direction for the future of the industry?
Absolutely. NCBA is grassroots. It starts locally. It starts with your cattle association in your county, your home state. They end up bringing it to the national, where we have a chance to look at it, to make sure we don't have any policies that conflict or coincide with it. And then we have it open for discussion. We get to talk about that. There's strength in numbers, and when we have a good, strong membership and we have the ability to discuss these issues, it makes us good, it makes us strong.
You've really kind of lived that grassroots member engagement, especially in terms of one of the committees that's really important to you, and that's the Federal Lands Committee. As somebody that grazes on public lands and utilizes those for your cattle, talk a little bit about the importance of the committee and the work that it does, and especially the new BLM rule that might be coming out that's a little concerning to folks like yourself.
Absolutely. Public lands are so important. Most people don't realize 40% of the cattle that end up in the food supply chain come through public lands at one time or another. And in my case, the state association and the national association, NCBA, helped us save that, so we were able to keep on using it. So when you have something come up like this, conservation rules through the BLM, where there's no local input, there's no discussion with stakeholders, it's cooked up in the back room, it's very disconcerting. It's not a true approach to conservation or multi-land use.
You know, you've kind of had boots on the ground in another area too, and that's Farm Bill. It's a Farm Bill year. There's Farm Bill listening sessions all across the country. There was one recently in Wyoming. Tell us a little bit about your experience there and how you got to participate.
You know, they've had lots of listening sessions for the Farm Bill, and I did get an invitation to go to the one in Wyoming, and it was a really good one because what happened was the senators wanted to hear from distinctive agricultural groups. And so we got to give our input on the different things like the vaccine bank, countermeasures, the DUFA, a lot of different things that were really critical to us, our take on obviously the BLM conservation rule and waters of the U.S. So that was a great one-on-one, but in particular we focused on the Farm Bill and all the things that come through that, disaster programs, risk management programs, things like EQIP and other conservation programs. A great discussion, great give and take, and I think they took our discussion to heart.
That's always encouraging when you can make your voice heard and feel like they're actually listening to you. You mentioned earlier strength in numbers and the value of membership. Talk a little bit about the importance again of lending your voice as a producer member, and then really just in terms of joining as NCBA as a member to give us that strength in numbers that we need so desperately.
Absolutely. Well, you know, there's value in joining an organization like this. You get to network, you get to make friends, you get to visit and interact with the people who actually help you and make things work. If it hadn't been for some of that networking, we probably would have lost our ag operation years ago. But I didn't have to know how to invent the wheel. I just had to learn how to use the wheel. And that was beautiful. So when you get to come to these policy meetings and you get to meet people, you get to have open candid discussions, and you get to learn how to work through these things, and you realize that you have allies, you have strength in numbers. That's what makes a membership in something like NCBA so very, very important.
Well, we appreciate your membership throughout the years, and especially your leadership in the organization, and we look forward to more things to come in the following year. Thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.
All my pleasure. Thank you.
As Mark just mentioned, it's more important now than ever to get involved and help support the work being done to advance the beef industry. Simply call 866-233-3872 or visit the website ncba.org. Be sure to use the code C2C for a special offer just for our viewers. Joining us now is NCBA's Vice President and Nebraska cattle feeder, Buck Werbine. Buck, thanks for joining us today. We talked with Mark a little bit earlier about the importance of the policy committees. I'd like to get your perspective on how these important committees really drive conversations among all segments of beef producers.
Yes, well, summer meetings are where the heavy lifting is done, and the committee work is where the membership actually drives policy. So we do nothing in this organization that is not in the policy book, and that has started here and worked on at convention as well. So this is really the grassroots of what happens in NCBA.
It's really where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, and there's a lot of work that goes done in setting these policies. What's coming up? What's going to be important to focus on in terms of policies and regulations that are facing us?
Yes, without a doubt. Of course, we have WOTUS, regulation that we had a big win at the Supreme Court with the Sackett case, but the administration is not giving up, and so we are going to have to continue to work on that through the legal means. And so that goes on and on. The Farm Bill is this year, and so that's an important thing. We see that we have the animal rights groups nefariously trying to get in on the Farm Bill and work against us. So we have to be constantly vigilant on that, and staff does a good job of that, our staff in Washington and so forth. And then the typical things about GIPSA and taxes and country of origin labeling and all those things that just seem like they pop up every once in a while.
I'd like to go back to the Farm Bill if we could for a moment. You mentioned the animal rights activists popping up, and it's kind of showing its face in the Farm Bill discussion this year in terms of some anti-checkoff legislation and bills that are being introduced attached to the Farm Bill. Given the importance of the beef checkoff to beef producers to drive the demand for product, why is it so important, and how is NCBA working to fight back against some of these introductions to the Farm Bill in terms of legislation?
Yes, it's interesting. It goes to show you how successful the checkoff has been if they want to get rid of it. And they are anti-animal agriculture. It's also interesting that they get a reasonably conservative senator from Utah, Mike Lee, to be on the same page as them and turn himself into an animal activist. So it's kind of amazing what they can accomplish and get done. And we just have to fight against that because checkoff is very important. And we have record beef prices partly because of the checkoff. And so we have a great product. We do a good job of producing it and so forth, but the checkoff helps get it out there.
I really like your point about how successful the checkoff's been, and yet people are fighting against it. That really kind of proves its success. That's a big challenge. Let's talk about opportunities. Where do you see opportunities for beef producers and cattle raisers this coming year?
Well, we are in a profitable time. We've gone through some really rough times and taken a lot of equity out of the business. Now we can put some equity back in. The opportunities, I think, are to find ways to continue to have good exports and have our people be able to, our own consumers here in the United States, be able to buy our product. The checkoff has provided lots of recipes and cuts and information to, as our product could get more expensive, that there's ways that they can utilize cuts that aren't as expensive and good recipes and so forth. So I would say the opportunity is going to be with grass in a lot of places and profitability of rebuilding the herd.
Yeah, it's really great to hear that there's opportunities ahead, and I think a lot of our members can profit from that. Thank you for the work that you do on behalf of the industry and our members to make sure that there's value in their product. Really appreciate you.
Yes, thank you.
Coming up, NCBA's policy division shares his thoughts on how NCBA's success is driven by its producer members.
It's time for this week's Weather Watch, and I'm also here in San Diego for summer business meeting. What's the topic for me? El Nino, impacts for your winter. What's the snow like? What's the precip like? Where are those warmer temperatures going to be this winter in this week's Weather Watch?
Are you concerned about the impact government policies could have on your cattle business? One way to make your voice heard in Washington is by joining NCBA. When you join, you'll be part of the nation's oldest and largest national cattle industry organization that has a professional team working in Washington, D.C. on issues that matter to cattle-producing families nationwide. Don't stay on the sidelines. Make your voice heard by joining NCBA today at the website ncba.org.
Did you know you can get reimbursed for attending cattle industry educational events? The Rancher Resilience Grant helps cattle producers attend valuable programs such as Cattlemen's College and Stockmanship and Stewardship training sessions. Local, state, and national events qualify for the grant, and successful applicants can receive money back to help cover registration fees and hotel expenses. To apply for the Rancher Resilience Grant, go to ncba.org and click on the Producer tab.
This beef quality assurance tip is funded by the Beef Checkoff.
Hi, Jolie Fitzsimons here to talk to you today about the Beef Quality Assurance Program and our online BQA modules. If you've been certified online before, you can now go back and look up your certificate or get recertified online. Go to bqa.org under the Certification tab to get logged in. Don't worry if you forgot your password. You can reset it on the site or reach out to customer support for assistance. If you've never been certified before, we'd love for you to head to bqa.org today and get signed up.
The Beef Quality Assurance Program is funded by the Beef Checkoff.
NCBA is the cattle industry's oldest and largest national organization because it is a grassroots-run association, where members work together to establish policies that drive the advancement of the beef industry. Joining us now is Gene Copenhaver, a Virginia cattle farmer who also serves as the chair of NCBA's policy division. Gene, I'd like you to give our viewers your perspective on how being a grassroots-run organization is really NCBA's biggest advantage.
It is the biggest strength by far. The fact that a policy or resolutions can start at the local level with one person or a local cattlemen's or a county cattlemen's group, go to their state organization, and then go onto a committee at either our two meetings we have a year, and then on to our board, and then for our members to vote for it later in the fall. It's the big reason that I'm involved, because it is grassroots. It is the common cattleman, just like me or anybody else can start a policy, and as long as you get enough people to go along with it, that can be the policy of the organization.
You know, your point is well taken. It's spot on that there are real producers here doing the work every day. It's also led by real producers. I mean, you and others that serve as volunteer leaders of this organization, you help support that work. Talk about how that works and how you all help support the work that's done here by the members that we serve.
Well, when policy comes through, like I said, it can start at the local level, state level. It goes through our committee process, and then it goes in our policy book. And as a leader, we take that policy and we go with our lobbyists, and we convey that policy to either DC on the Hill or our state legislators, and we control what is said and what is done, and it's just the way to do it.
You know, there's a lot of issues facing the beef industry nowadays. What are some of the top issues that you see NCBA focusing on this fall?
The hot issue right now is cell-cultured product or cell-cultured protein. That's the hot issue. We have to be ahead of the game on this. We had our brothers and sisters in the dairy industry that got behind the 8-ball on this, and they lost the fight, I think. So we have to do this for future generations, whether it's my son or my daughter or my grandson or granddaughter. We got to fight now for them in the future.
You know, you've been involved in the industry for a lot of years, not only as a producer, but you've also gotten involved at your state association and now NCBA. What would be your message to others in encouraging them to really stand up and share their voice in the process?
Well, I'll start out by saying the old famous NCBA term, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So that's number one. But if you're in the business and you're in the business to sustain what you got, your operation, to be profitable, and to continue on generational wise down the road, you better be at the table. You better be here fighting the fight. If you don't do it, somebody else might do it. It might not be the same thing, the same goals that you have to do it. So you need to be here. You need to be a member of NCBA. I mean, that's the best vehicle to do it by. I mean, we're the largest, we're the oldest, we have the best lobbyist in Washington. You have to do it if you want to stay in the business.
And we're really supporting the best industry in my mind, and that's cattle production and beef production. So thank you for your years of service to the industry. Really appreciate you being here with us to give us your perspective on this.
Thanks, Kate.
Gene just talked about why it's so important to get involved, and one way to do so is by becoming a member of NCBA. Just call 866-233-3872 or visit the website ncba.org. When you join, be sure to use the code C2C for a special offer just for our viewers. The Cattle Industry Summer Business Meeting is just one of 2 important events on the calendar. The other happens January 31st through February 2nd of 2024. And joining me now to give us all the details is Kristen Torres, NCBA's Executive Director of Meetings and Events. Kristen, most of us know this as 2024 event is the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show, but we have got a new name moving forward. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we tried to simplify things a little bit so that we could market the event a little bit more easily for folks. And so now the event's known as CattleCon. So anywhere you see CattleCon, that was the Cattle Industry Convention.
It is a lot easier to say, just one short word, and it's really, really fun too. But same great event, nothing else has changed. Maybe why is attending the event so important?
Well, this is the event for the cattle industry. So anyone that's in the beef cattle industry needs to attend this event. You know, we have a huge trade show. This is where policy is set for the industry. And they actually have a great opportunity to network with their peers. So no other event gives you that same opportunity.
It's always so great to see our people come together at this event every year. Another thing that I'm sure will be consistent, as in years past, is great speakers, education, and entertainment. What can you tell us on 24?
Oh yes, we have a great lineup. So we have made a few tweaks to the convention this year in an effort to make education available for everyone. We are actually going to have education available on every single day of the convention. And so the schedule is going to be slightly different than it was before. Not much, same dates, but we've tried to condense it a little bit to make it easier for folks. And we tried to change up the education offerings to where folks have education pretty much anywhere that they are. There'll be some things in the classrooms. We'll have live cattle handling sessions. We'll have education sessions on the show floor, more interactive type sessions, really trying to meet people where they are and get them the education that they want and need. And then as far as entertainment, we love to do that as well. No place else in the world is like Orlando, Florida. So family friendly and family oriented. And we really tried to lean into that in planning the convention this year. So one of our big events is going to be somebody's favorite place for sure in Orlando. And we're going to be going to Universal Studios at the end of the week. So we're hoping folks bring their families, bring their kids. Kids are also welcome in the trade show. 12 and under are free, so they can, feel free to bring those kids to the event. We try to make it as family friendly and as fun as possible.
It's always so great. You mentioned the trade show. There's also a lot of education that happens in the trade show as well as products. It's a highlight for all of our attendees. What's on tap this year for the trade show?
So we have several different education areas on the show floor. One is called Chutes and Scales, where folks can go and see chutes and scales in action, doing a side-by-side comparison. And then we have a demonstration arena where we're doing those live cattle handling sessions. Those happen all day, every day that the show's open. And then we have more traditional classroom settings there as well. We're gonna have some chefs on hand as well for some cooking demonstrations. So there's pretty much anything anybody could want, they'll be able to find there in the trade show. Additionally, we have receptions in there every day, so there's lots of opportunities to network. And we have almost 350 exhibitors currently signed up. So anything that somebody needs for their operation, they're going to find there on the show floor.
Yeah, it's always such a draw, and the receptions every day have lots of samplings of great beef too.
Yes.
You talked about people bringing their families, so again, something new this year is registrations opening a little bit early to allow for planning of that. Tell us more.
Absolutely, yeah. So we wanted to make sure that people had time to plan and knew what we had planned for the convention. So we moved the registration opening up. So registration's open now, and it gives everybody about an extra 6 to 8 weeks to plan for bringing the kids, bringing the whole family, and really putting together a fun trip. And in addition to that, we have tours that are set up. We have discounts at the local theme parks. All of that in place so that folks really can make a fun vacation out of this as well.
Yeah, I know Orlando's been great working with us to give our folks the opportunity to bring those families and have some family time together, which is so important too. Kristen, thanks for all you do every year to make this event so great. Thanks for visiting with us today, and we'll let you get back to planning this great event in Orlando.
Yeah, thank you so much.
As Kristen mentioned, CattleCon is going to be the event of 2024, and registration is now open. Go to convention.ncba.org for all the details. Up next on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll talk about the Federation of State Beef Councils and the ways it works to increase consumer demand for beef. Stay with us.
CattleCon 24 is marching onward to Orlando, January 31st to February 2nd, 2024. Have your say in the future of the industry, network with fellow producers, or connect with friendly faces. Plus, the NCBA trade show will be on site with over 385,000 square feet of the latest and greatest in the cattle business to help your operation stay competitive and sustainable. Learn more at convention.ncba.org.
This beef quality assurance tip is funded by the Beef Checkoff.
I'm Steve Boyles, Beef Extension Specialist at Ohio State University. The BQA tip focus at this time is transportation, and we're going to talk about tires. Trailer tires are different than our truck tires. They are designed with a heavier side to handle loads. The thing we have to think about with that, since it's designed to handle loads, we have to help the designer out and maintain the inflation in these trailer tires. You probably want to check that inflation at least more often than we probably do with our truck tires to maintain the integrity of this tire. The other thing we have to take into account is how often we use trailers. Many times with trailers, the side of a tire is going to wear out sooner than the tread. So we need to look at the side and evaluate, look at the cracks, look at the breaks in the side of that tire. You can also look at the age of the tire. There's a 4-digit code on this tire, 3918, which means it was manufactured on the 39th week of 2018. After 6 to 7 years, we need to more critically evaluate the condition of the side of this tire. Let's say we do have a blowout. When you repair or replace the tire that went flat, remember to put it back on the front of the trailer where the trailer manufacturer meant that tire to be. That will increase the ease you have of getting that tire the next time you need it. For more information about this topic and others, you can check out BQA Transportation at the website.
The Beef Quality Assurance Program is funded by the Beef Checkoff.
Time now for Weather Watch, brought to you by Ag Risk Advisors and WSR Insurance.
It's time for another Weather Watch. Matt Makins here. We're still in San Diego as we were with the last Weather Watch, and some of the important discussions impacting the industry are happening basically just over my shoulder. And myself and Randy Block are here on behalf of CattleFacts. Clearly he has some of the market outlooks, but it's closely tied into weather. And that's why I'm attending this summer business meeting, is because this discussion of going from such a prominent, powerful La Nina pattern into an El Nino pattern has us all thinking about, okay, what about the corn crop this year, harvest? What about Should I plant wheat this winter? Or are we going to do better in that regard? So let's break this down. And I know a lot of you like the historic perspective. So let's start there. Let's start with this timeline. On the left is the early 80s. On the right is today. If you see the red periods, that's El Nino. Blue periods represent La Nina. So on the far right, you see that little sliver of red. That's as we've left La Nina and moving into this new El Nino. As basically as we can discuss, here are some of those reasonable, similar years that you should be keeping on your radar. Some of the stronger events that have happened over the past few decades had been the early 80s, 82 and 83. That was a stronger event than what we are likely headed toward. 97, 98, 15, 16 were very strong events and likely stronger than the one we are headed into. Perhaps some years that may be reminiscent to you that will be most similar are 87, 91, 92, 02 and 03, or 9 and 10. Those were more moderate to leaning strong El Niños, and that appears to be, as of data today, where we are headed for the incoming cold season. So let's chat about what this winter may mean. Well, during harvest, as we go close to harvest and through harvest, there will be some areas of precip to consider. But really, El Niño's biggest impact is during the cold months. So let's break it down from November through next April. And you're starting off looking at the precip. And with precip, we are looking at doing so by spreading out higher than normal rainfall totals, snowfall totals from California through Texas to the southeast. And then another area into the Central Plains. Driest areas of all, Pacific Northwest, Northern Rockies, Northern Plains. Temperatures. Temperatures are critical when it comes to the strength of El Nino. Right now it looks like the northern states will be hot, the southern states will be colder than average. But I just mentioned that the strength of El Nino is critical for those temperatures. A slightly weaker El Nino, and you know what happens? We totally reverse those temperatures and the southern U.S. stays hot. In future weather watches, we're going to do just that. Watch this El Nino as it progresses and give you the latest conditions, those monthly forecasts, and just the overall sense of what's happening. Again, that's on the next Weather Watch.
Weather Watch is brought to you by Ag Risk Advisors, with you no matter the weather. And by WSR Insurance, providing insurance solutions for more than a century. Visit their websites for more details.
The Federation of State Beef Councils has a long history of building beef demand through an effective state and national checkoff partnership. We're pleased to have with us Clark Price, who runs commercial cows and stocker cattle in North Dakota and is also chair of the Federation Division for NCBA. Clark, thanks for being here. Could you refresh our viewers on what is the Federation and how it works?
So the Federation of State Beef Councils is exactly what that sounds like. That is a collaboration of the states getting together, collaborating their funds, and using that at the national level to kind of come to a common goal, whether it be research or promotion, whatever they want to do, but it brings those dollars together.
And what's the benefit of this multi-state partnership to the beef industry and really the producers themselves that are paying the checkoff dollars?
Well, it really allows those cattle-heavy states and the low-population states to take those monies and put them towards our coasts where the cattle are not located and the people are located. So that's the way that the states that are using those dollars to expand on the beef demand.
You know, the Federation is also driven by grassroots producer leadership. Talk about how you all provide guidance to the Federation in terms of making the programs effective and the dollars go further.
So our Federation directors are all coming up from the state beef councils, right? The state beef councils will nominate them, elect them. They come to the national convention. They go to these committee meetings that we go to and listen to our contractors come with ways to promote beef and increase the demand of beef. So those individuals that are grassroots people from our state beef councils go to those committees and give direction to our contractors on how they think they should actually be promoting our product.
And I think it's really important to note that not only yourself as Federation Chair, but then all those the directors that you just talked about, they're checkoff paying producers themselves, so they're really driving their own, they've got a stake in it too. Talk about why the Federation then and how you all work together is so critical to the success of the beef industry, producers like yourself.
So like I said, they're all working on those committees, listening to the contractors, listening to the direction the contractors think we should go, and then giving input to those contractors to kind of tweak some of those ARs, the authorization requests that they're willing to do, and then come out of that that goes to the operating committee. The operating committee decides to fund at a certain level, and then the federation can come in behind that and say, we think this is a more important project than that, and we can actually add on to that. And once that project, whatever it might be, gets completed, our individual states can take that and use that in their states to actually further those projects nationally.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into it, but really a lot of effective programs that drive demand for beef. That's exciting.
Very much. That's an exciting thing to have going on.
It is. If you'd like to learn more about the Federation of State Beef Councils and its efforts to build beef demand, just go to ncba.org and click on the Federation link. Still ahead on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, you'll see how John Deere equipment is helping a Florida ranch manage their challenging hay season. That story when we return.
By installing Ritchie waterers, you save water while keeping it fresh and always available to your animals. You protect the land by keeping natural water clean and soil healthy. And you conserve power because they're energy efficient. We're committed to helping you create a prosperous, sustainable, and regenerative future. Because we know, like you know, that every saved drop matters. Ritchie, fresh water for life.
This beef quality assurance tip is funded by the Beef Checkoff.
Hi, I'm Courtney Gray, Director of Marketing and Industry Relations with the Pennsylvania Beef Council. I'm here today to share some beef quality assurance tips on vaccine management and safe handling. It's incredibly important when you're working with vaccines that you are following the proper management of those vaccines as directed on the label. Most vaccines require storage in a refrigerated area between 35 and 45 degrees Fahrenheit and require being stored out of direct sunlight. It's incredibly important that we follow those very basic tips in order to ensure their efficacy when delivering the product into an animal. In addition, you will want to follow the label instructions on where the vaccine should be administered. Beef Quality Assurance would recommend that you administer any injections forward of the shoulder in the triangle region of the neck. When you're working with vaccine chute side, you want to ensure that if you're storing vaccines in a cooler or moving vaccines from location to location, it's highly recommended that you stick a small thermometer in the cooler to ensure that those vaccines are kept safe. This also helps with employee management and safety of yourself as well as the livestock at the chute side. For more information on vaccine storage or animal handling in general, please visit bqa.org.
The Beef Quality Assurance Program is funded by the Beef Checkoff.
Cattle producers always strive to put up high quality hay, but that's often easier said than done. And having the right tools and equipment can pay off in a big way. Cattlemen to Cattlemen reporter Brad Bola has a look at how John Deere is helping a Florida producer manage their hay season.
In Central Florida, the Long Hammock Ranch has been in the hands of the Hughes family for just a few years. But for brothers Chad and Justin, this ranch was a big part of their time growing up.
My parents lived on the backside of the hammock here, and us growing up as kids, this was one of our summer jobs, was coming here working hay. And in 2020, we had the opportunity to buy Long Hammock Ranch, and we purchased the ranch.
I worked in the summers baling hay out here, so I'd walk across this oak hammock right here in the mornings and come out here and work. So to be able to come back later on and buy the ranch when it went for sale was pretty cool because I grew up on it.
Once they got the ranch, the Hughes brothers went to work building their own cattle herd, including both Brahma and commercial cows.
Our cow herd is two different herds. We have some registered Bremer cows that we keep here close to the house. It's more pets than just something we like looking at.
We started off wanting to get really good genetics and something fresh to start with. So we started off with all 2-year-olds from West Williamson down in South Florida. Bought all 2-year-old bred heifers and put them out here, and they've done very well. They're very gentle, and that's continued over in the calves that have came off of them.
We come here in the afternoons and the evenings, and we ride out and bucket feed them, and getting our cows and our calves and everything through and trying to start a program is very important to Justin and I.
Beyond the cattle, Chad and Justin, with help from their kids, produce an abundant hay crop each year. Some hay for their cattle and some for customers.
It's crucial to us in the wintertime because we calve in the wintertime and this place gets dry and they need the nutrients that we get out of our coastal and Tifton fields.
Chad and Justin are in the process of building some good hay baling customers. Although they will not be doing any custom work, they will be selling hay and feeding it themselves with the herd of cattle that they're developing.
In addition to the ranch, the Hughes brothers operate a site development company that uses John Deere machinery. With that experience, it was easy for them to decide to go with John Deere for their haying operations.
Chad and Justin have a very good reputation with their site development business, their construction company, and that just follows through with their ranching operation as well. Chad will tell you right quick, he suffers from OCD, and he wants everything to be done right, and they want their machinery kept up right. They want their machines ready to work with, not work on.
The biggest advantage of John Deere equipment to us in the ranch is it's reliable, it's good equipment. It's easy to operate, the safety features and all of the equipment.
John Deere equipment's very dependable, and when we get on the tractors, they run, the balers don't clog. We can go across 400 acres really fast with them. When we need them, they run.
They make a really good bale, and they're tight, they're consistent, and our customers like that. You know, the sizing and shape and everything about it, it's really consistent. It's easy for us to put up in the barn. So we have to put a lot of bales in the barn. And then some of our customers buy hay year round so it keeps well. You know, all year long they're tight, they're not sloughing off or falling apart.
In addition to the reliability of the machinery in the hayfield, the Hughes brothers have come to rely on the support they can count on from Clinton, Lowe, and Fields equipment.
The dealer support here. Like last summer we had a bunch of hay on the ground and one of our rakes, you know, went down, and this was a Saturday afternoon at 6 o'clock, and I called Jacob and said, hey, do you have a rake? And he said, I do. I said, can you meet me at the store? I mean, they were closed. He was at home eating supper, and he met us up there. We hooked to it and kept going. So dealer support with Fields is a really big part of why we've chosen John Deere.
We would have been dead in the water without them doing that for us. And they didn't hesitate. They stopped, dropped what they were doing, left their families, left their house, and got us back up and going, which is something that you just really can't put a price tag on.
Raising cattle, growing hay, and building a work ethic in the next generation. These are core family values Justin and Chad are aiming to install in their kids.
I like everything about the ranch work, the cow work, the hay season, everything. It's a lot of fun.
I feel this place teaches them really strong work ethic, having to work together because they all have to depend on each other when they get out here. I mean, it's long days for these kids when they're out here, and they do a good job working from daylight to dark.
And that's what we plan to do here is keep it the way it is and only make it better, and hopefully the kids will carry that legacy on too.
On the Long Hammock Ranch in Central Florida, I'm Brad Bulla for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
If you'd like to learn more about how hay equipment from John Deere can bring value to your farm or ranch, visit your local dealership or check out the website johndeere.com. Still to come, we'll visit Nebraska to learn how one cattle operation is taking a proactive approach to managing BRD. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
From baling to loader work and property maintenance, John Deere 5 Series tractors can do it all. Run heavier implements with up to 130 horsepower, handle loader work, easily stack bales with improved visibility, work precisely and confidently with precision ag technologies, and a variety of cab and transmission options to fit your needs and your budget. More choices, more versatility, more confidence. Ask your John Deere dealer about 5 Series tractors.
This beef quality assurance tip is funded by the Beef Checkoff.
Hi, I'm Courtney Gray, the Director of Marketing and Industry Relations with the Pennsylvania Beef Council. A large portion of my job is on the farm with producers, helping them to obtain beef quality assurance certification. But another part of my job is working every day with consumers who have questions about the beef that they are purchasing in the grocery store. My tip for you today is to obtain your beef quality assurance certification. I understand that many of the tips that are in the Beef Quality Assurance Program might be things you've already implemented on your farm or ranch. The importance of the certification process helps us when we're talking with consumer audiences to show your commitment to basic things on your farm. Things like good animal husbandry, quality animal care, and ensuring that the beef that ends up in consumers' hands is of a high quality product. It's never been more important for us to have that story to tell. I hope this has encouraged you to want to obtain your beef quality assurance certification. You can find out more by visiting bqa.org, which will help you find the location for an in-person certification near you, or you can take the online modules and complete the certification from the comfort of your own home. BQA, the right way is the only way.
The Beef Quality Assurance Program is funded by the Beef Checkoff.
The foundation of a profitable cattle business is healthy, high-performing animals. From an animal health standpoint, one of the biggest threats is still bovine respiratory disease, or BRD. Cattlemen to Cattlemen reporter Brian Baxter takes us to Nebraska to learn about some of the key steps and tools available to help detect and prevent BRD.
In north-central Nebraska, Clint Pischel runs 750 cows on his family ranch that dates back 7 generations. He also operates a feed yard. With his experience in both segments of the cattle business, Clint knows the value of preconditioning his calves.
By doing the 90 to 120-day weaning period, along with the extra rounds of vaccinations, we're adding value back to those cattle. We're getting them ready for, there's no feed yard that won't bid on them. Due to that, we're, depending on the year, we're seeing, a 20 to $60+ premium per head.
Whether it's on the cow-calf side or in the feed yard, the biggest threat to calf health for producers everywhere is bovine respiratory disease.
So bovine respiratory disease, BRD, is still one of the biggest battles that we fight in the beef sector, both in pre-weaned and then in the post-weaning time frame. So we've seen a lot of challenges.
BRD has been a huge issue here. If you don't have vaccinations in by the right time frame, we're seeing with the droughts we've had the last 3 years, we're seeing huge problems with dust pneumonia, a lot of quick pneumonia, and nothing stops it until you run them through the chute and you get that vaccination round through them and get them going on that, get their immunity built.
At the cow-calf level, a sound preconditioning protocol builds that immune system and sets a calf up for good health throughout the production cycle.
If we wean at home, 45, 60 days, those are the animals that buyers really see the value in. We see increased growth as far as the cow-calf person. They're selling more pounds. They're selling a product that is going to be successful, and the buyer realizes that, and they're willing to pay more money for those animals.
All of our home-raised calves, when we wean, they already have a preconditioned shot. Then we give them another one at weaning time. And having that dual round of vaccinations through them, we will treat 1% or less out of every calf weaned all the way through sale time.
And Merck Animal Health we introduced an intranasal vaccine, Nasalgen 3-PMH, a couple years ago. A great product that combines viruses, the common viruses and the common bacteria that we see associated with BRD, and it fits into that cow-calf space. It fits into the initial start of stimulation of the immune system as we look at the production cycle.
At the feed yard, there are often higher risk calves coming in, so it's essential to have an on-arrival protocol aimed at preventing BRD or any other health problems.
A lot of the cattle that we feed come out of West Virginia. When those calves arrive, they get a Nasalgen product, they get a Vista 1 shot, then we'll hit them with a wormer, and along with a Vision 7. Depending on the weight of those cattle, after about 45 days, they'll be ran through again, given a second round of vaccinations. Typically, we'll give them an implant at that point.
We're also at Merck committed to bringing new technologies into the BRD space with Whisper on Arrival, stethoscope, as well as Sense Hub feedlot tools. In working with your veterinarian on bovine respiratory disease, treatment records become extremely important. If we're not measuring what we're doing, we can't really determine what type of success that we're seeing. Work with your veterinarian to figure out what are the things we want to focus on.
With BRD, one of the first priorities, which can be difficult, is early identification of a calf that's affected.
we know that if we have a good immune system, we put the right antibiotic in at the right time, at the right dose, we have a very good chance of turning that animal around to where a single treatment will take care of it.
The challenge is what you can't see. The challenge is, does that animal look fine, but it's running a high temp?
What we found is cattle are sick for longer than what we may think they are when we finally treat them, because they're a prey animal. They don't want us to know that they're sick. And if we're checking pens once or twice a day, we're going to miss some cattle because they don't want us to know that they're sick. And with some of the new technologies like Sensub feedlot that Merck introduced a couple years ago, what we found is we're able to identify cattle earlier with that technology. And when we compare it back to when a traditional poll would be, we're going to pull those cattle about 36 hours earlier. When we say, you know, you can't see what you can't see, once these bacteria start to replicate in that animal and start to colonize the lung, that's when we're really starting to have challenges treating bovine respiratory disease. And that's where we need the immune system to help us. We're going to put an antibiotic in to try to knock back bacterial counts, but we've got to have a functional immune system that can come in and start to clean things up. That's why preparation of the immune system at whatever level, whether it's cow-calf or as we get into background, it becomes so important.
Cow-calf producers and feedlot operators both have more tools available today to prevent, detect, and treat BRD, and it's critical that producers fight that battle.
Raising cattle for the consumer and to make a good finished product, and that can never be taken to full extent without a good vaccination program and setting everything up for the feed yard.
Reporting from Nebraska, I'm Brian Baxter for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
For more information on Merck's lineup of cattle health products that can help your farm or ranch meet any challenges, just visit their website, mahcattle.com. Stay with us. We'll be back to wrap up this special episode of Cattlemen to Cattlemen from San Diego right after this.
They're here. They're hungry. And they can't be stopped with ivermectin. Choose Safeguard when you deworm your cattle to take out resistant parasites like brown stomach worm, Cooperia, Nematodiris, and others. With Safeguard's efficacy, you can kill more resistant worms in your cattle, so you don't leave potential on the table. Consult your veterinarian for the diagnosis and treatment of parasitism. Then bite back at safeguardworks.com.
This beef quality assurance tip is funded by the Beef Checkoff.
Hi, I'm Steve Boyles from The Ohio State University, Beef Extension Specialist. And my beef quality assurance tip is about bunk management. One of the pillars of beef quality assurance is providing fresh quality feed. One of the ways to do that is through bunk management. Bunk management can improve feed efficiency because we're not going to waste as much feed. There are two things that I normally look at when evaluating a set of cattle and where their intake is. I look at the bunk and I also look at the cattle. Well, let's look at the bunk first. You can use a bunk scoring system. An example would be a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now a 0 is a slick bunk. There's not any feed in there essentially. A 1, there may be sprinkles of feed in that bunk. 2s, 3s, 4s, you can use your own judgment, but there's extra feed in there at the time you are ready to bring more feed to those animals. If you've got 2s, 3s, and 4s, that could be feed that is going to be reduced in quality, especially if it has moisture in it, say some sort of silage in there, and that's going to reduce overall feed efficiency of the pen. So we're going to come back and evaluate if we need to reduce the feed or increase the feed. Normally, if you're going to increase the feed, increase it about 10%. If you're going to decrease the feed, use your own judgment, probably about 10% the opposite way. Admittedly, weather can alter how cattle eat. If a storm comes through, that's going to affect how much they eat, and you may have to make some judgments momentarily for that. But overall, a feed efficiency can be improved through a bunk scoring system. But there's that other factor. We've looked at the bunk. Let's look at the cattle. My general rule is 25, 50, 25. So when that truck comes through, I want to see about 25% of the cattle coming up there, they are ready to eat. 50% They could be in the middle of the pen, even back of the pen, but they're gonna get up. And they saw the truck come through, they're gonna start to make their way to come up there and eat some feed. Finally, that 25% that is maybe standing in the back of pen or laying down, they may not come up to the bunk at all. They've just eaten. So you have a good estimate on how much those cattle are eating. So once again, when you're evaluating how much feed to provide in a pen, look at the bunk, but also look at the cattle.
The Beef Quality Assurance Program is funded by the Beef Checkoff.
Recently, the Young Cattlemen's Conference, or YCC, relaunched after a 3-year hiatus. The event, which is sponsored by Corteva Agriscience, Elanco, Farm Credit, 5 Rivers Cattle Feeding, John Deere, Tyson, and NCBA, is designed to give participants exposure to the full supply chain. This year's class included 71 leaders from across the nation in every segment of the beef industry. They experienced 9 days of intensive leadership training as part of a 5-city tour. YCC participants traveled from Colorado to Nebraska and on to Ohio before wrapping up in Washington, D.C., where they learned firsthand how NCBA's policy work impacts their operations and the broader industry. Completion of the Young Cattlemen's Conference prepares its participants to serve as leaders within their state associations, in addition to being advocates for NCBA and the beef community. Don't forget, each year, thousands of cattlemen and women from around the country come together for the premier event of the beef industry. It's CattleCon, and it's not too early to start making plans to attend January 31st through February 2nd in Orlando, Florida. Registration is now open, and you can get all the details at the website, convention.ncba.org. If you've missed an episode of Cattlemen to Cattlemen or want to rewatch a favorite story, you can do so by visiting our YouTube page. You'll find replays of all of our shows filled with educational segments and producer profiles from around the country. So check us out on YouTube. That wraps up this special edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Thanks so much for spending time with us, and we'll see you again next week right here on RFD TV.